Hi, my name is Hans-Horst Konkolewski, and in the name of the Global Vision Zero Business Council and the International ORP Foundation, I would like to welcome you all to this first of two webinars about Vision Zero in times of COVID-19, towards a new and safer normal. Our main focus today will be on two critical success factors, both for the safe return to work for millions of people that have been affected by lockdowns and for securing higher prevention levels in the future, or in other words, for a new, safer normal. These two issues are how to develop a new caring prevention culture and how to protect the most vulnerable employees. Each topic will be presented and discussed at a roundtable with two OSH managers from renowned Vision Zero companies, sharing practical solutions, and high-level OSH experts from the Asia and Pacific region, offering strategic considerations at the societal level. And we would like you to join the discussion. It's easy. Just use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen and send us your question or comment. Our first roundtable is addressing the most important overall precondition for both a safe and healthy return to work and for higher levels of safety, health, and well-being at work in a post-COVID world of work, namely a caring prevention culture. Please welcome Lars Hoffmann, who is head of EHS Expert Center, Siemens Germany, Toshihiro Fujita, who is Chief Safety Officer of IDEC Corporation Japan, Dr. Mohammed Azman, who is the CEO of SOXO Malaysia, and Xiong-Hin Ho, who is Senior Director at the Ministry of Manpower in Singapore. Lars Hoffmann and Toshihiro Fujita will start by presenting the business case of introducing a caring prevention culture at Siemens and at IDEC. So please, Lars, you have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. So I think I need to share my screen, right? I hope it works.
Perfect.
Let's switch into presentation. So thanks, Hans-Horst, for introduction, and good morning and good afternoon, I think, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, as Hans-Horst mentioned, within the next couple of minutes, I'm going to talk about introducing a caring business culture or prevention culture, however you want to call it at the end of the day, and whether there's maybe some kind of business case behind. What I'm not going to do today is I'm not going to talk about dollars of savings of dollars or euros or any other financial figures or return on invest. This is something you can, or each and everybody can calculate on his or her own, because just showing some numbers is sometimes misleading because you don't know the real background behind and how it was calculated. So I think this is something very easy to do at the end of the day. I'm more showing what we have done in the last couple of years and how it helps us today, especially in the pandemic crisis. Before we start, just a very few words about our organization. I guess more or less everybody knows Siemens, from household equipment or trains or power stations, whatever. We are around about 400,000 people in our organization around the globe. We are present in more than 200 different countries in the world, with all the differences, different cultural backgrounds, different social systems behind, etc., etc. Just to give you an idea about our complexity, especially if you have to deal with topics like pandemic crises. So, but coming back to the caring business culture, we started already back in 2012 to say initiate a cultural change, and we have implemented a global program called Zero Harm Culture at Siemens. So the term already explains what we wanted to, or we still want to achieve. We are not there yet, but we are on a good way so far. So we have implemented our program to start a cultural change, which I must say today, we as an organization are very happy that we started already back in 2012, because we realized now during the pandemic crisis that it helps us really a lot. If you look at the left side of the slide, you see our clear vision, what we have implemented years ago already. Every Siemens employee should be able to rely on an intact and safe working environment so that they can return healthy and safe to their family and friends. And if you see it today, it is not just applicable to any accident or injury, it is also applicable today more than ever to the pandemic crisis. We just want that nobody gets infected while working in our company or on behalf of our company. Very simple. So you see, our vision is applicable not just to incidents and accidents, it is also applicable to other health and safety aspects as well. And you can imagine if you want to move around about 400,000 people into a certain direction to go somewhere, which is finally our vision, you need to have some kind of guardrails. And therefore, we implemented our simple principles: 0 incidents, it's achievable, also applicable today. Health and safety, we don't compromise at all, very simple. And most important, we care of each other. And now here we have especially the link to the caring business culture. In the past, maybe each and everyone was focusing on his or her own. We said, no, this is not enough. We care of each other like a family. Yeah, people do it usually at home. They care for kids, they care for friends, they care for relatives. Why don't we care for each other when we are at work? So very simple, a clear vision, clear guiding principles. And on the right hand, you see the core elements of our caring culture. We have local leadership and leadership commitment, which is essential today in the pandemic crisis, because as an organization, you as a corporate unit, you just give some guidance, a framework. And since we are so diverse and in different countries and at different sites, which are always totally different, you have to put it into practice at site level. And therefore, of course, you need the local leadership and the site management commitment. So this is already all in our DNA. We have a communication concept, which is already in place since years, which we just use for any kind of topic we want to share. We have different target groups, we have different formats, we have our own social media, we have other information channels, and we were really happy when we started the lockdown during the crisis now, that everything was already in place. And this really pays off today. I will not imagine, I don't want to imagine, if you need to start really from scratch to implement things like who is responsible for what do we need to communicate to whom, etc., etc., etc. So I think it's very obvious and clear that having a solid and sustainable management system in place and a culture in place that is really addressing the topics and sustainable, you can save a lot of time and at the end of the day. Of course, if you want, you can calculate it also into money. Okay, so this is what we have done. Everything is in place. It's anchored in our DNA. We just had to start to work on our agenda, especially during COVID pandemic crisis. So if you do it the right way, of course, you get additional benefits. Yeah? You care for employees. You, of course, as I said, you can ensure a health and safe working environment for every employee, which is a no-brainer, or should be a no-brainer, of course. Please don't forget your partners. You are dependent on partners, no matter whether it is on construction sites or supply chain or whatever. At the end of the day, and you see it in the pandemic crisis, the supply chain is heavily impacted. So please make sure once you do something, they are all integrated. Then, of course, you may see also a reduction in your typical leading or lagging indicators like frequency rates, absenteeism rates, or whatever. And by the way, this is something you can put easily into money if you want. Sometimes you have to convince management also with numbers. This is something you can do easily at the end of the day. And of course, you raise confidence in management. So people are more proud to work for your company. And this is something what we see right now, because You have a direct comparison to other companies, what they are doing. And don't forget war for talents. Everybody is talking about that because good resources are getting rare. And this is at least something we feel in Germany or in Europe, that good talents are getting less and less. And young people are looking more for health and well-being aspects rather than getting a company or a company car or whatever. Then care for business, health and safety excellence equals also business excellence, of course. It goes hand in hand at the end of the day, which will then be reflected in lower insurance cost, less contract or no contract penalties at the end of the day, and less breakdowns. You fulfill your customer expectations, which is increasing, by the way. At least this is something what we see in the power business or automation business. And higher productivity and quality pays off anyway. And then care for customers. This is something what we realize. We are moving more from the typical, let's say, contractor and customer relationship towards strategic partnerships as a trusted partner. So I think this is obvious. This is at least something we see in our organization. And finally, because time is passing by, I just want to give you a very brief overview about what kind of influence or impact the pandemic right now has on the view and mindset on health and safety. Again, please keep in mind that I'm just talking about our organization, and it might look different in other countries or other organizations. So one thing that everybody realized was, or still is, that health and safety cannot be taken for granted. This is something, in the past, it will never happen to me, all these phrases. And now people see it can affect me today or tomorrow. It can directly. And I think this is something people have now in mind, and they see suddenly that within their families, within their friends or with their relatives, people are suddenly exposed. And nobody was expecting that. And I think this is something that will sustainably impact the people's mindset, that health and safety can't be taken for granted. You have to focus on it, you have to work on it, you have to fight for it every single day. Similar with emergency preparedness, we have our own organization in place. Then you do your exercises, you go through the documents, you make sure the organization works. And in the past, people were saying, why do we need it? Nothing happened the last years. And now people see that it is good to be prepared. There's anyway a lot of work once something happens, but the importance of preparedness, emergency preparedness or pandemic preparedness raises. Then strengthening of management ownership. Yes, you always have the front runners, and the people really take over ownership and responsibility. So health and safety is seen. Occupational health and safety challenges is a joint effort. Nobody can do it alone. This is something we realize. You need supply chain, you need legal people, you need health and safety specialists, etc., etc. So forget about I can do it on my own. And then prevention is also seen as a business differentiator. This is something we see at our customers and our supply chain. People see and come back to us and say, well, we see you have it under control, you can master it, can you even help me? Okay, then, and finally, as I said, raise of occupational health and safety awareness. This is back to topic number 1. People see suddenly they can be personally exposed, so they take it more serious, and they see also they can influence it directly. And of course, having all the negative aspects of the pandemic crisis, we also see that we identify a lot of opportunities to drive our business and occupational health and safety performance. So this was in a nutshell what we have done in the past, how it helps us today, and what the pandemic is still doing today in regard to influencing, mindset and the view on health and safety. Thank you so far.
Thank you very much, Lars, for this excellent insight into how you have managed this and the importance of having already a culture in place that for years has been aiming at zero harm, and how this preparedness now has helped you to manage the crisis. It didn't come just as a thief at night, which is sometimes the impression if you see the more public reaction or the reaction from governments that companies that had these kind of concept in place, they easily could, or quite easily, there's a lot of work of course involved, I know also for you personally, but you could use these as a great basis to also address the risks of the pandemic and master them. So thank you very much. We'll come back to discussing your contribution. Now it's a pleasure to give the floor to the second company speaker, so to say, which is Toshihiro Fujita. Toshihiro, you have the floor, please.
Can you see the slide?
Yes, it's fine.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Konkolowski. Today, it is my great pleasure to talk about IDEX Caring Holistic Safer Normal Approach, representing Japan-based companies. First of all, here's a brief introduction of our company. We are a manufacturer of industrial control and automation product. In year 2017, APM, a company based in Europe, joined IDEX Group, and we now have over 3,600 employees throughout the world. IDEX Group had a company philosophy called the IDEX Way, and in our vision, we are committed to pioneer the new norm for a safer and sustainable world. As all of you know, Vision Zero campaign started worldwide in year 2017 from Singapore to realize employees' safety, health, and well-being by proposing 7 golden rules that require commitment by the top management. IDEX was deeply impressed by this Vision Zero philosophy, which aims at well-being, and we joined the campaign as the first company from Japan in January 2018. As of now, more than 10,000 companies and partners from all over the world have joined Vision Zero campaign. After joining the campaign, we have been taking an active approach. One significant achievement is that we developed a self-check Excel tool for 7 golden rules, and we implemented Vision Zero philosophy at 3 factories as shown in the bottom left of this slide. The chart shown at the right compare the before and after implementing Vision Zero approaches. We utilize ISO 45001 Occupational Safety and Health Management certification by JISHA, Japan Industrial Safety and Health Association. ISO 45001 was published in year 2018 from ISO, and it is becoming very important nowadays. The left spider chart shows the performance before starting the Vision Zero initiatives, blue color for executives, and a red color for managers. The right spider chart shows the performance after the plants were certified with ISO 45001. As you can see, there are significant improvement. So we believe that the 7 golden rules really help top management and managers who need to improve occupational safety health in their workplaces. Here show the number of COVID-19 new cases over time in Japan. It gradually started to increase in the beginning of March and peaked at the middle of April. And it started to decrease gradually afterwards, thanks to the declaration of state of emergency by Japanese government. During this COVID-19 pandemic, we were suddenly obliged to do teleworking and to stay home. That's why we quickly formed IDEX Team Wellbeing with members from various departments. They discussed ways to improve the well-being of people working from home, and they decided to create new 7 golden rules for well-being at telework. The new rules focus on the aspect of well-being, such as a lack of control or a lack of social support. At first, we started the survey in Japan to all the employees, and we are continuing the survey every 2 weeks to see improvement. As shown here, the spider chart started in the end of March, improved month by month. This analysis helps us to identify the areas where improvements are needed. Following the survey in Japan, we conducted the same survey in all the major countries shown here. Through these global surveys, there were some findings in each country, and they help us to take necessary measures. Notably, quite a few workers who were forced to work from home found new opportunity to enhance their well-being. For example, we developed new ways to do business, such as holding webinars. This proved very successful and created new business opportunities. Not only that, we felt motivation and a sense of satisfaction by achieving good result in this difficult time, and that improved our well-being. Also, no commute increased time to learn new things and more family time, which improved overall well-being. So we believe this survey is genuinely helpful to create new caring culture in IDEC. So IDEC considered that the implementation of conventional 7 golden rules into factory workers and implementing new 7 golden rules for teleworkers will strongly help creating the new caring culture in more sophisticated and stronger manner. These initiatives have been featured on ISSA ESER's Vision Day website as a good example of caring prevention culture. So if you have interest, you can download 2 Excel files we created. When we look closely at the 7 golden rules, we can see that the rules can be categorized in 3 types. Rule 1 is related to management. Rule 2 to 5 can be associated with technology, and Rules 6 and 7 talk about human aspect. This is the last slide to summarize what IDEC is now focusing. This tripartite model, which consists of technology, human, and management aspect, represents IDEC's caring and holistic approach. In technology aspect, IDEC continued to innovate the human-machine interfaces where people operate machines. In order to prevent infection, the interfaces will need to be more touchless, easy to clean, and remotely accessible. To achieve this, we need collaborative safety. This is called Safety 2.0, and it is a new holistic safety concept to ensure safety of workers by the smooth collaboration of human, machine, and environment by using ICT. For your information, the collaborative safety will be explained in detail in IEC white paper, the title Safety in the Future, which will be published by IEC in November this year. Next, in human aspect, in this difficult time affected by COVID-19, we really realized that all levels of workers, from top executives, managers, and field staff, all of them need to understand the essential and vital importance of occupational safety and health so that they can act proactively to ensure safety. Therefore, we started all company effort to take safety officer qualification system developed by the Institute of Global Safety Promotion. They provide e-learning courses by Chairman Professor Dr. Masao Mukaidono for executives, managers, and staff. I am very much proud of that as many as 70 IDEC executives and managers have been qualified. In management aspect, as I already mentioned, IDEC continue to lead our occupational safety health activities with the philosophy of Vision Zero for the safety, health, and well-being of all IDEC workers and for the global community. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fujita, for giving us this insight into how you have been working very systematically with the Vision Zero approach and the 7 golden rules. And in a way, you have been championing, I think, this development as regards well-being. Because I recall when we first launched the concept and we said it was about safety, health, and well-being, especially the term well-being caused a lot of questions. Now, what do you mean by that? And it's great to see that you actually have taken it to a way where you even can measure well-being in teleworking. And I think this shows very clearly that there's nothing mystical about well-being. It's as important as safety and health. They're all very closely interconnected. And I think this was very interesting in your presentation. And I would like to congratulate you on having developed this new concept of measuring well-being in teleworking. So we look forward to discuss this later on. So now,
okay,
after
thank
we
you
have
very
heard,
much.
we have heard these great, I think, examples from company level, how companies have reacted towards the crisis, and more specifically working with a caring prevention culture as a key element in their strategy. We're turning now to the more national level, to the strategic level, and we are very lucky to have 2 outstanding leaders with us today, partly from Malaysia, Dr. Azman, and from Singapore, Dr. Siang Hin Ho. And I would like to give the floor now to Dr. Azman to share with us how SOCSO has approached the pandemic and how SOCSO is working towards this caring prevention culture. So please, friend, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Konkolowski. I admire your tie. You have a nice tie today.
Thank you. I think it's symbolizing a bit the COVID, you know, spots.
Hello and good morning or good afternoon to everyone. Wherever you are tuning in from, I hope you are doing well and in good health. Thank you, Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Fujita, for sharing your business cases to illustrate how a caring prevention culture is applied in Siemens and IDEC. I particularly found interesting Mr. Hoffman's explanation on how a caring prevention culture positively affects employees, business, as well as customers. I definitely echo your views that the benefits of adopting a caring prevention culture goes beyond the individual. While Mr. Fujita highlighted a very important point on how technology, human, and management should and must work together in achieving a caring culture. My task today is to comment on the idea of caring prevention culture and how this can be supported. As some countries are currently moving to the recovery phase, such as Malaysia, it is timely that we discuss how prevention culture should be practiced at the workplace in this era of new normal. Before we start discussing on what is meant by a caring prevention culture, we need to first understand the traditional approach to prevention. The traditional prevention culture places a heavy focus on system for safe work and healthy employees. While this is important, oftentimes the way we conduct prevention understates the human person. When this happens, prevention becomes detached from the living experiences of an individual. This often leads to systems or process-based measures of prevention that inhibits well-being, but at the same time ensuring that work is safe. Whereas a caring prevention culture is one where safety, health, and well-being of workers are equally addressed. When this is carried out, our workers will be both mentally and emotionally receptive. Subsequently, this culture will lead to increase in productivities in workers. In my opinion, three components are necessary in supporting a caring prevention culture. The first one is the policy, second, empowerment, and finally, last but not least, engagement and education. Firstly, we need to integrate caring prevention in the organization's safety and health policies. These policies need to be inclusive and address interpersonal relationship, workplace satisfaction, as well as emotional and mental well-being. Mr. Fujita had shared in his presentation how IDEC conducted a well-being survey to further understand the well-being of its employees. The result of the survey enabled IDEC to implement better initiatives which ultimately enhance well-being. This is a perfect example on how policy can support a caring prevention culture. Another important component of a caring prevention culture is empowerment. Workers should be empowered and given ownership to determine the best safety and health measures that works for them. This is in line with 7 golden rule for Vision Zero. Invest in people, motivate by participation. Instead of having companies dictating what is best for their workers, a bottom-up approach should be taken in determining safety and health well-being measures. Similarly, Mr. Hoffman has also mentioned employee empowerment as a key aspect in successfully achieving zero harm culture in Siemens, providing how crucial empowerment is in creating a caring prevention culture. When workers decide what works best with their roles and responsibilities, they are naturally made to constantly think of the best prevention culture. Finally, a caring prevention culture moves away from relying on enforcement to ensure adherence. Replacing this is engagement and education, where reward system, sharing of experiences, and promotion are one of the many ways to promote this new culture. Again, engagement and education were also touched upon by both presentations, which demonstrate how our understanding of a caring prevention culture is aligned. So, what is the tool needed to sustain this caring prevention culture we are talking about? To me, the Vision Zero approach is developed at the right place and time to support and sustain a caring prevention culture. Previously, well-being has always been a neglected component when compared with safety and health. With Vision Zero, a framework is created that places equal emphasis on safety, health, and well-being. To achieve a caring prevention culture, we need to place well-being at par with safety and health. Only with this, we will be able to achieve the end goal of producing well-balanced workers who are able to recontribute to the society. This is all from me today. I hope I made some sense and did not bore you. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Asman, and for your, I think, very stringent considerations and for outlining the importance of, in order to create a caring culture, you also need to look more strategically into some of the elements of the Vision Zero approach, especially when it's about the policy. So it means the top management, and also when it's about, and most importantly, the empowerment of people in order to be able to take care of these issues. So as you said, the importance of engagement, of education, in order to involve everybody and don't leave anybody behind. And I look forward to discussing later on with you how SOXO might be, let's say, promoting these kind of approaches amongst Malaysian businesses. So, and this leads us to the last commentator in this roundtable before we have the discussion, and it's my pleasure to give the floor to Mr. Xiang Hin Ho from Singapore, please. And Singapore, as we all remember, was the cradle of the Vision Zero, Global Vision Zero campaign, and also was the really pioneering country. And we are so pleased to have you on board, because you have been really the author of the concept and being behind a successful implementation in Singapore. So thank you for joining us today, Mr. Ho.
Thank you, Hans. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes, it's perfect.
Yes, okay. Now let me see how I share my screen first. Oops. It always, I just tested it earlier, it works. Yeah, sharing screen, share screen, audio on.
We should go back where you were before, because we actually saw already your presentation. So you're going into your desktop.
You saw that, isn't it?
Yes. If you share your screen,
Okay.
you will see your desktop, and then you click on your presentation. That should. So first you have to click on share screen.
Do you see that?
Yes, we see your screen now, but now you have to.
You see the screen now?
Yes, but you have to go into. We don't see your presentation yet.
Anyway, yeah, sorry about that. Just give me 1 minute.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
My apology. Let me see. Share screen. Start now.
Switch to the PowerPoint.
How to switch the PowerPoint?
Close your home app. When you save your PowerPoint?
Can you see this?
Absolutely, this is perfect.
Oh, sorry. That means that just now it works, but I just thought you couldn't see that. My apology. All right. Thank you for inviting me to come to share with everyone on this concept of Vision Zero in times of COVID-19. As a previous speaker has mentioned, there is this Vision Zero globally was launched in Singapore in 2017 at the World Congress. But really, the Vision Zero movement in Singapore started quite some time ago. And we have been experimenting with it, trying it out and working with our partners. Now, what is Vision Zero? When we first mooted the idea of Vision Zero, there's always this saying that, is it Vision Zero or Zero Vision? And to us, Vision Zero, is it equal to zero fatality? Or is it zero injury, zero illness, or no workplace accident, or no unsafe act at all? So that is what people perceive Vision Zero. And most people will say that this may not be realistic. But really, what Vision Zero means to us, Vision Zero to us means it's a mindset that all work-related injuries and ill health are preventable. It's about thinking process, the mind, and the mindset shift that require that instead of fault finding, you go to finding solution. Instead of trying to point a brain culture, you go a culture of learning. Here, I would like to take a pause to say that in this era of this COVID-19, such a mindset has become very useful because a lot of things that we are experiencing are new to us. So fault finding will not lead us to anywhere when we do not know a lot of unknowns in terms of what is, then there's no lack of certainty on this area. And more importantly, to focus on finding solution instead of finding. And having a blame culture will not help you to learn and move forward in how to tackle this crisis. So this mindset has helped us to give us this ability to tackle this COVID-19. Now, what are the attributes of Vision Zero? When we talk about Vision Zero, we look at a culture of prevention. That's on the right-hand side. And in order to have a culture of prevention, believe there must be a culture of trust. And before you can have a culture of trust, you must have a culture of care. Hence, the culture of prevention and care. And to do this, you must have near-miss reporting, and not only systematically address root causes of accidents, but also generating progressive WSH practices. Now, in these times of crisis or pandemic that we are experiencing now, is the importance of carrying prevention culture cannot be overemphasized. Here in Singapore, we talk about the worker as a center, people-centered approach. Are workers fit for work? Because are they safe? Are they healthy? And this is the concept of a safe worker. That's number one. Are safe management practices implemented? In other words, is the workplace safe? A safe workplace will help to ensure there's a safe worker as well. But is that good enough? As Dr. Asman said, well-being is also important. And Dr. Fujita also mentioned about the well-being at telework. And this concept of well-being is about safe living as well. And you're looking at our living conditions and livelihood taken care of. Livelihood means the vulnerable workers, whether they have a job, they have a salary. And this is a concept of safe living. And taking it together, safe worker, safe workplace, and safe living. But ensuring our workers remain well and those who are ill recover well is important. To do this, we have to ensure that we increase the testing capability, able to test it accurately and timely. Isolate of confirmed and suspected cases in order to stop the transmission. Compulsory wearing of masks in public and workplaces to ensure and to limit the transmission as well. And most importantly, quality medical care, where we provide full subsidy for all COVID-19 patients, regardless of where you come from. As long as you are working in Singapore, you will be entitled to this full subsidy for medical treatment for COVID-19 patients. Now, at the workplace, for safe workplace, we impose comprehensive requirements to ensure workplace is safe to resume to work. There are 7 key elements requirement for safe management at workplaces. First, they must appoint a safe management officer to assist in the implementation of safe management measures. Employees who can work from home must continue to do so. It is to ensure that they are able to work at home and this telework comes in. Reduce physical interaction and ensure safe distancing. We must support contact tracing initiatives, wear masks and observe good personal hygiene, keeping workplaces clean, and most importantly as well, implement health checks and protocols to manage potential COVID-19 cases. Now, in here, we leverage on technology as well to strengthen contact tracing, because contact tracing is one of the key areas to be able to stop, to limit the spread and access control at the workplace. We have this phone apps that call Trace Together to identify close contacts. I have a phone installed with a Trace Together, another person having another phone, and through the Bluetooth, because of proximity, they are able to detect each other and how long we are in contact with each other. There's also this Safe Entry app that allows us to scan to go into a workplace. And now we're looking at a Bluetooth-enabled wearable tokens to help us to identify possible interaction with COVID-19 carriers as well. So in the area of safe workplace, we also ensure that we enforce it as well, keeping up with the strict regulatory standards for safe distancing. For example, just yesterday, 7 workplaces were ordered to cease operation for lapses in safe management measures, and we will fine each $1,000. And our inspectors go down to workplaces and making sure that the safe distancing measures are in place and effective. Now, I mentioned about safe living. This includes about saving jobs and supporting wages for all workers. These are usually the more vulnerable workers. With this COVID-19, it's not only confined to health issues or public health issues. It impacts the social as well as the economic impact of a person. And the ability to save jobs and help them to stay on the job is very important. And here, the government has come up with a lot of packages to help companies to ensure that the workers stay on the job. And these are some of the measures. Now, in preparing for the safe next phase, the safe working area, we limit the mixing among workers while at work so that to limit the spread, stagger pickup and drop-off points for workers going in and out of workplaces, and use only designated transport. In the area of safe living, in Singapore, we have large numbers of migrant workers where they stay in very closely knitted dormitories. And the idea is to how we can build more dormitories and improve the living space, amenities, and 6-bay areas. We also ensure that there's a staggered rest days as well, so that when the workers are not working during the rest days, they do not congregate in their recreational areas, so that they can spread out the people around there. Here, strengthening the culture of care to prevent ill health, safeguard welfare and livelihood is very important. In our Prime Minister's message to Singapore, it says to everyone, including migrant workers, if you fall down, we will help you to get up strong. You can be sure we will take care of you. In Singapore, no one will be left to walk this journey alone. So on that note, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you indeed, Mr. Ho, for sharing the Singaporean experience. And in particular for, I think, your very interesting understanding of, let's say, the interrelation and building a prevention culture between a culture of care, a culture of trust, and a culture of prevention. And I noted that you said that for you, the real basic was a culture of care and caring for each other. If you don't have that basis, it's difficult to build this. And I think this is also what we heard across the presentations today. And so thank you very much. Also for highlighting that, well, if you talk about a culture of caring, and if you really want to develop this approach, that you need to go even outside the workplace. No? You have to also intervene and consider living conditions, and it'd be interesting to come back to that aspect, how to integrate these. So, but with this, we have now some time for questions, and I would like to ask the first question to Lars. And as you have been working with the zero harm approach for quite some time, could you share with us what is the most important, so critical success factor that you also have seen now with the pandemic in order to have, let's say, a sustainable prevention culture? That's the first question. And the other one I have is one of the critical ones. Now, you mentioned that people are much more, let's say, alerted to the importance of prevention, and they can see how important also the structures that you have in place, your own services, I know, have been called upon, and also are more respected, maybe, or more on the horizon of people. But how do you intend to maintain that increased level of attention to prevention amongst the workforce, so that we do not lose it again once we hopefully soon will come to the other side of the pandemic?
I would say, as you're asking for, what is the most important aspect? I think there are some important aspects. First of all, this is at least our experience, if you start to implement, or if you want to change your culture, however you define culture at the end of the day, you have certain criteria, characteristics. It's different from country to country, from company to company, that you do it in a sustainable manner. I've been in other companies before, and we have implemented other programs that people usually know. They are available on the market. You can even buy them sometimes. But this is not homegrown. We have developed an own homegrown concept program, however you want to call it at the end of the day, where people identify themselves with. This is more, and you need to integrate them. If you just take something out of the shelf, if you try to implement something that is not homegrown, people usually are on distance, they are afraid, they don't believe in it because they are afraid, they don't know what the intention is. And for us, most important was that people are integrated to develop the program. Yeah? We have just given a framework, and you can imagine, I just said, we are available in more than 200 countries all over the world with different cultural backgrounds, different values, different beliefs. And we failed at the beginning significantly. When we started the pilot, it was in Brazil. And so we had shown our concept, and the people were sitting there and were listening. And we had pictures from Europe, from our German factories in it, etc. And they were just leaning back and say, this is not us. So please make sure that people identify themselves with whatever you are going to develop. This is, for me, core for success. Yeah, otherwise you fail. We even tried to shift good practices from one country to the other, and we failed. Because some countries said, oh, because we don't need the Germans to tell us how to do health and safety. We can do it on our own. This is from our perspective really critical for make it individual, localize it, even at site level, and involve the people. If you leave the people outside, forget about it. This is just a question of time that you fail. And it happened in other countries where we just tried to implement something and we failed. And as I said, and the second point is how to keep the people motivated to drive it forward. Hand it over to the sites. Yeah, they don't need corporate to tell them what happened, what is good for them at site level. So what we just did was we, let's say, had the ignition. We gave the ignition and gave the starting point, and then we handed it over first to the countries. So the countries are responsible to drive our cultural program, and they drilled it down to site level. And if people have the freedom and flexibility to adjust and modify and to make it their own program, then it will be sustainable. And
thank you very much.
The feedback we receive is unbelievable. Yeah, we have our internal social media, and every day you see new best practices, new success stories. So they develop their own program. This is not anymore coming from corporate, and this is, from our perspective, really key for success.
Thank you very much.
Your questions.
Oh yeah, you have definitively. I think this is very, very interesting. The importance of that. It does not just have to be a top-down approach. It has really to be a bottom-up approach, as we also heard. And otherwise, you don't get the buy-in and you don't get the real personalization of that. So thank you for that. To Dr. Fujita, I wondered the concept you have developed for measuring well-being in teleworking. Are you also using it in your normal operations, the well-being questionnaire, or do you need to amend it, or how does it work?
Well, as I mentioned, when we started the Vision Zero, when we joined the Vision Zero campaign in year 2018, we started to implement Vision Zero philosophy into the factory, areas. Of course, we paid attention about the well-being, but after coming the COVID-19, we really started to think in more care each other. How can we be united to overcome this difficult situation? That's why we constructed the team very quickly, the team called Well-Being. they started to thinking, let's utilize the 7 golden rules to modify to meeting with the, teleworking, especially to cope with COVID-19. So this is the motivation. And I think, but now we can spread into the other, concept. I think the 7 golden rule is well, constructed. I appreciate your effort, to do this. That's why we are trying to utilize and, improve more and more. That's our philosophy to do.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fujita. To Dr. Azman, how does SOCSO, or what role do you see for SOCSO in promoting this caring culture in the Malaysian society? Because you are engaged in many, many angles of people's life, and work life is some part of that. So do you have any new ideas on how to motivate companies, how to motivate the population to be more caring at work?
Yeah, thank you. I think this is a very, I would say, that unprecedented event of the pandemic COVID-19. To be very frank, that initially our focus is very much into safety and health, but with this, we believe that we need to do more, looking into the well-being. But before we start to look into all the stakeholders, or basically the employers, I think we should start in-house. So that is where we believe that with what we are doing in-house, we can use this as a good or best practices before we can share with the other stakeholders, especially the big employers. The problem with Malaysia, about 80% of the employers out there is SMEs. So they don't have well-structured or well-organized safety and health committee to look into all this. So that is where we believe that when we do it in-house, for example, that we have started working from home, we have the rotation basis of Group A and Group B to come to office. Even we inculcate simple approach of reminders of best practices during this pandemic, for example, like wearing masks, social distancing, taking care of your hygiene. So this is some of what activities that we do in-house. Even we have enrichment program to even get the employers to share with our team, in-house team, what more advice that they need in terms of looking at well-being. So with this small approach within the organization, we hope that we can take this and share with all our stakeholders out there, which we are also looking at the change management approach. And we believe that by doing this, we can get more of our stakeholders out there to learn and also to emulate what we do in-house. So I would say that at the moment, there's nothing, but we have to move towards that. I think this is something that new normal for us to learn and also to share with the community out there.
Thank you very much, Dr. Azman. And finally, to Mr. Ho, I think we all followed the success story of Singapore in kind of combating the virus. And then you had this, now the return of the outbreak amongst the population groups you mentioned, the ones that are migrant workers, and they are living under conditions which kind of promote infections. So, and you have taken these initiatives. How has this been received, that you kind of go outside the workplace and you actually go into the more private life and private sphere? Because I think this is something that we in general in prevention in the future will have to do in order to develop our prevention culture further. So just let me know briefly, how has this been received?
Yeah, I think thanks Hans for the question. It's indeed something that when we were trying to tackle this issue of pandemic in the workplaces and things like that, we realized that it cannot stand alone. It's not only a workplace issue, it's not a public health issue, it's also going into the living workplaces, especially in Singapore, where we have a large numbers of migrant workers. They stay in an area that's quite confined, quite congested. It's just like a cruise ship, right? Where people are on board a cruise ship, it's all contained, self-contained inside there. And this is a condition for spreading of the virus quite easily. And because of that, we detected that earlier, back in even in February. January, we highlighted it, February, and we start moving into this area to see what we can do about it. Now, the important thing is that there's this, if you don't do it properly, there's this fear factor coming in. And the fear that you may get contract the virus, especially for the migrant workers, and the fear that you may not get adequate treatment. Here in Singapore, coming up from a prime minister, telling everyone, including these migrant workers, that everyone will be taken care of and will provide free medical services even. And when we went into the places where the migrant workers stay, we call dormitories, right? We go in there, assure the workers, provide meals for them. All meals are provided by the government for them, so that they have this assurance of they've been taken care of, and they will not be left alone down there. And that helps to calm the people down and be able to say that, look, no worry. Okay. Some of the workers even say they probably have a better treatment here than they're in their home countries. So this is something we thought is something we thought is do quite well, and we are helping whatever we can for these migrant workers. There's still some way need to fight this thing, and it's not over yet. And we are slowly opening up our economy now, and workers are slowly getting back to work. And we have some days or months ahead to see how we develop. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And I think it's very important and a beautiful example that caring also can come from the top, like from your prime minister, caring about everyone in society. I think that is also important, as we said, for the management of companies to give a clear signal about their commitment that people come first. I think it's also important that this comes from the political leadership, and I think Singapore is a great example hereof. So with this, I would like to thank our first panel and give them all a warm round of virtual applause. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and your experiences and for taking your time to be with us today. And so thank you very much, and stay safe. So with this, I would like now to go to our second topic, which relates actually to one of the issues that has been addressed by our former speakers, and that is the need for more person-centered approaches in prevention. The pandemic has required special prevention measures to protect vulnerable employees against infection risks. And what we now would like to address is how have companies actually managed this challenge in practice? And how could we ensure that person-centered prevention in the future will play a more important role and supplement traditional collective prevention measures in order to exactly reach out to the well-being, to wider areas of health, and so on? Because at the end of the day, we all are different, and we have different needs, and we have different strengths and weaknesses. So with this, I would like to introduce a panel, which should be online now. Yes, they are. And so please welcome with me José Manuel Balinote, who is the Health and Safety Manager at Acciona in Spain. Gianluca Campodimonte, who is the Manager of Environment, Health and Safety for the European Union at Philip Morris International in Switzerland. Bonnie Yao, who is the Executive Director of Occupational Safety and Health Council of Hong Kong. And Gillian Hamilton, who is the founder and CEO of Managed Damage of Australia. So welcome to all of you. And we will start like before. We start with the business cases. So José Manuel and Gianluca would share with us the business case of protecting vulnerable people at Acciona and at Philip Morris, respectively. So firstly, I would like to give the floor then to José Manuel for sharing Acciona's experiences. So you have the floor, please.
Hey, good morning and good afternoon for most of the attendants in this case. Well, I would like to show what we are doing and what we did, first, so you can understand a little bit. Can you confirm? Can you see my screen?
Yes, if you open the presentation.
Okay. So basically, I'm going to start just a quick briefing of our company. We are a sustainable company, and can say that because we are a leader in sustainable infrastructure solutions, as well as renewable energy projects with more than 40,000 employees around the world. Today, we're going to be focusing the infrastructure business, where inside we have, for example, like construction, industrial, water, service, and concessions in this case. And in all this business, we were and we are applying what I'm going to show you regarding the vulnerable employees. Okay. And just before we go to what we did and we are doing, is the definition. No, it's important to understand where we are before we start. As per the Spanish Health Department, the following groups are the ones considered as vulnerable. Regarding COVID-19. As you can see, the list is now we have almost 10. No, all these pathologies are considered as vulnerable, and it's easy to understand why. No, of course, they have a higher mortality rate. It shows that more in this case the cardiovascular, something we can call special, no, to protect these employees. Regarding the over 60 years old, just I think this one speaks by itself. Over 90% of the deaths in Spain is inside the group of people over 60 years old. No, so it is clear that that part of the society is the part of the society we need to protect more. With this virus going around in this moment. Before we go to see our procedure, I would like to comment on in line what Hans was saying. No, we need to understand that this situation changed a little bit the way that we were managing the risk in this case, and all the procedures. We cannot apply a collective measure or a collective procedure when, for example, every person is different, every person is in a different position, okay? More we are speaking about health, no, because it's not the same to, for example, protect a risk of fall, no, because everyone, you put a barrier, so everyone is protected, than when you are speaking about health, no, when, for example, a person with 25 years old with no pathologies is no problem when you can have a 45 years old with some pathologies that can be considered as vulnerable, no? And in this case, the illness can be more serious. Starting with the information is just being sure that employees understand what is the vulnerable groups. No, it's important that they know why they are vulnerable and also what kind of pathologies are involved in these groups. And the reason why is for the second phase, identification. We can say that some people can be scared. Let me explain about when I mean scared. We are asking for a very sensitive information, private, okay, because it's something that they don't need to really share with the company. If you have a pathology, it's a personal thing. So that's the first thing. We're asking for something sensitive that some people can be or can not agree to share. As well as, of course, everyone knows that after this health crisis, financial, economic crisis will come. So some people can take this as a segregation thing. That, of course, is not the case. Okay, we want to help them. So that's the reason that here in this identification, we need to be sure that the approach that we use is, we need to be careful. Okay, just to be sure that the employees understand that this is for help them, not to do any kind of segregation, okay? Once we have identified the employees, we need to send them to the medical service in order to medical evaluation needs to be done in this case. Sorry for the Spanish in the table, but this is the official health matrix, okay, for vulnerable employees, where the medical service needs to set in what level of vulnerability employees are, taking into account the exposition level to the illness, to the work position, if that person is exposed to different people or not, is working alone, that kind of things, as well as the pathology situation, no? If the pathology is under control, if it is not under control, or maybe that person has combined pathologies, no? That it will increase a lot the vulnerability level. Once the medical service make this evaluation is when the information arrives again to the health and safety department, and depends on the vulnerability level. We need to, if it is in the first one, it's it's not really a problem. The person is vulnerable, but that person can work at the same situation as before. The second one is they need a special PPE, protection PPE, that we are going to check just after now. And when the person is between 3 and 4, it's clear that something else needs to be done. Or you change the work position because that person cannot be doing what he's doing. Or in cases even number 4, is process the sick leave until the spread of the virus is being reduced. It's clear that 3 and 4 for people in office is easy because it's working from home. Okay, that's the best solution right now. But as you can understand, with more than 40,000 employees and with different tasks, in this case, not everyone can work from home. So even for vulnerable employees that have other positions that makes it impossible to work from home, well, we all have a program of continuous active monitoring, okay, to be sure that they are okay, almost on a daily basis by their manager. Also, the vulnerable employees shall not be assigned to a task that might involve close contact. Okay, that's like a gold rule that don't expose the vulnerable employees to that kind of situations, as well as non-surgical masks for these employees. I mean, need to be protection masks in this case. Okay, remember that these people, in case they have the virus, as we said before, the consequences can be in this case much worse than others. Okay. I hope I took the 10 minutes, Hans. Sorry if I took a little bit. And of course, any questions, I will be glad to answer after this. Thanks.
Oh, thank you very much, Jose Manuel. No, you start perfectly within the time frame. So thank you also for that, which will allow us to address some questions. And with this, I would now go to the second presenter from business, from Philip Morris International. It's a pleasure to welcome again, Gianluca.
Hello, thank you. I'm sharing the screen. Let's see if it works. Can you confirm that you can see the screen? Hello? No. So let's see. Not yet. Now I guess you can see it.
Yes.
Oh, very good. So perfect. So good afternoon, good morning, everyone. So just a quick introduction about my company. Philip Morris is a tobacco company with a dream to design a smoke-free future. So stopping selling cigarettes to replace with potentially less harmful products for some adult smokers. Large company, almost 75,000 people. We are present in more than 180 plus countries. We have 150 million consumers, and we have some of the famous brands that smokers will know. So we saw from Jose Manuel that protecting vulnerable people somehow is somehow easy, because working with our medical center, understanding what is their medical history, it was pretty much easy to identify those people that we had to keep at home. So for them, the most important thing was to ensure, let's say, a safe work environment or non-work environment, because if we think that people working in a factory, honestly, there is no alternatives. For them, the most important thing is to preserve their health and have job security. So the company took a very bold decision to ensuring that nobody will lose the job. We will do our utmost to be sure that this situation will not have financial consequences on the families that are working in our company. So the dilemma when we talk about vulnerability was now we need to protect the economy or to protect the workers. This is the question, that just to use Shakespeare as a reference. And we realized that in this context, we are all vulnerable, because we saw very soon that also people that are not in these at-risk categories could get sick with very serious symptoms and also consequences. So the company decided to take really again a very clear direction to be people-centric. So to say, doesn't matter how much it is, we need to protect our people. So we decided to, first of all, taking care of those that, for obvious reason, we wanted to keep home. First of all, keeping people working from home was not a punishment or a pushback, but just to be sure that we could focus on the people that must stay at work. So we consider this category like vulnerable. So if you cannot bring your machine at home for evident motivations, so how we can maximize the support to those that will be working from home, and also focusing on the people that have to keep the business running. So first of all, working from home, we had to ensure that we could keep the mental health. We know that working in this situation is a total different setup. We discussed for many years about work-life balance, what is the office, what is home, and suddenly the home environment became the office, with all the problems that we know, having the family to manage, kids around because the schools were closed almost everywhere, keeping the connection with the other colleagues, keeping the purpose, because you become suddenly a lonely worker. So isolated somehow from the others, at least physically, but you work only through these interfaces that now we know and we are mastering, like Zoom, Skype, and so on. So keeping also the possibility, as I said before, to manage the family, getting the right tools in terms of performing your work, because we saw very soon how ergonomic issue can raise at home, not using the proper chair, not having the right screen in front of you, or not taking pauses, because we see people working for 2-3 hours non-stop, because it's very easy that you lose the connection to the time. And then also getting PPEs, because suddenly we saw that in most of the places also having what we call now the community masks and sanitizer became almost impossible. So the company decided to send home this kind of preventive measures like masks and sanitizer. Of course, we established a platform where we can offer the remote worker some support in terms of ergonomics, in terms of exercises, how to organize their digital workplace, and then of course how to familiarize with this new reality. In the meantime, we had what for us became the most vulnerable people, those that couldn't work remotely. So the countermeasures that we put in place are very similar to what we have seen so far in many companies. So medical screening, helping people to familiarize with the new rules. And for sure, the perception of the risk helped a lot, because when we saw the number of fatalities, when we saw the number of cases rising every day, people understood that this was not a joke. This was something extremely serious. And then the success of our preventive action was based on individual effort. So as you can imagine, hand sanitizer, cleaning the workplace, reorganizing the workplace, dividing people in groups in order to facilitate the contact tracing, giving a lot of importance to the use of PPEs, social distancing, cleaning any point of contact with machines or other utilities, lifts, staircases, and so on, became a must, together with the new behaviors that we had to familiarize. So communication was fundamental also to keep the attention high, especially when we started to see in some countries that the number of cases were declining. In many countries, too soon, we thought that, okay, now we are safe, now the situation is getting better. And this is one of the biggest challenges, because our vulnerability at this point in time seems to be solved. We are not vulnerable anymore. We can go back to normal, and we are forgetting very often that the virus is still there, and most probably with the same mortality features that he had so far. So it's important that the communication is kept, that the countermeasures are kept, because in this phase we are still all vulnerable. So if we fix with the remote working part of the problem, I like to think that everyone is still exposed, and we need to maintain this setup. So of course, what we are doing also testing as much as we can when the situation is recommended to do so, especially in those countries where unfortunately the national public health system is not as strong as it should be. So we decided to take also this role, testing our employees to be sure that they get the best care and we minimize the cross-infection. So our mantra is coming to work and going to home safe every day. And we shouldn't forget that all the other occupational risks are still there. So COVID is something on top of the risks that we used to manage every day. Matter of fact, in this phase, when everybody was feeling more vulnerable to something invisible, which is not easy to understand, always the cause-effect element, because you don't know who is going to infect you. You don't know in many cases who is infected already, because we know that there are asymptomatic cases, which are the vast majority. This was increasing the overall attention to safety. And this is the biggest learning that we had in this period. People started to take care of each other because they immediately realized that together we are stronger. So now the challenge for EHS professionals is how we can maintain this this mindset. So how we can take the learning for the coming time of hoping that very soon we will get the vaccine and COVID will be officially, let's say, killed by the science. So at the moment, the lesson learned for us was observing the behavior. So creating this behavioral design system using applications and tools that we have already in our factories to increase the interaction between colleagues, to give feedback to each other in respecting the rules that we have in place, with a clear mindset that everyone is vulnerable, not only because of COVID, but also when we go back to business as usual plus, I would say. Plus means we should maintain the learning. So shouldn't be exactly as usual, should be better. And of course, the principle is that each person protects everyone. So if we're able to maintain this mindset, I think safety will improve. What we observed that the incidence rate of injuries declined a lot in the last 3 months. So we saw that people were much more attentive, and they understood that also having a simple injury and going to the hospital to get the proper medication could be a problem, could expose people to the risk of infection. And I think that this was giving a bit of contribution to stay alerted. Another big learning was when we are vulnerable, we are more open to ask and to give help. So we were developing platforms also to help outside the factory, outside the company, because there were many requests for help. And of course, we established also a portal where we could suggest initiatives that we should take care in our communities, so the employees could promote specific projects to support the communities. But also if the employees themselves were in a difficult situation, they could ask for help. So this is a big exercise of humility and putting yourself at the service of the others. So asking for help and giving help. And here we see only few examples of the many that we put in place, producing hand sanitizer, providing PPEs to the local communities to support in this difficult moment. So in this case, the answer was easy. So if you go back to the dilemma we had at the beginning, protecting the business or protecting the people, taking care of your people is always the best thing to do. Because normally if you take care of your people will take care of the business. What we need to keep for the time being is keeping this preventive approach, because we saw that against this invisible enemy, being preventive was a key success factor. And I think that we need to practice humility and let's say, develop this natural instinct that the human being has to help the others. So asking for help also in the workplace when we are in trouble executing something should be done more often, and also helping our colleagues, our mates to be safer every day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gianluca, for sharing these interesting insights into what you have done and which experiences you have gained at Philip Morris, and we'll come back to some of these aspects in the discussion around. So now it's my pleasure to go again to the national, the more strategic level, and Gillian Hamilton and Bonnie Yao have kindly agreed to share their views on how and why person-centered prevention could be strengthened in our prevention policies. So I will start with Bonnie. So Bonnie, you have the floor, please.
Thanks, Horst. Okay. 跟住點啊？咁我喺電腦啊？呢個我 click 咗。Okay. Okay, so you can see this. So good morning and good afternoon to all of you. Greetings from Hong Kong. First of all, a bit about the new normal in Hong Kong's workplace. Now you could see that all workplaces in Hong Kong check that you don't have a fever before letting you in. And you will see hand rubs, health information everywhere. People are wearing masks and keeping a distance. And some are still working from home while some have flexible working arrangement. Against this background, Hong Kong has passed through its first wave of COVID-19 in April. But recently we see a small spike towards the end of May and early June, involving an international retail shop, the Marks & Spencer, and its logistic handler. So what we notice is that we should remain vigilant and could never afford to be complacent. Besides, we should respond real fast. Actually, because the public are now concerned about receiving parcels because of this logistic handler. And people are asked, is it safe for me to open the parcel and all that? So making reference to the local health authorities as well as WHO's information and guidelines, we issue guidelines for both the general public as well as for the courier workers. And that's useful. And some of the local newspaper actually quoted us for this. So if you're interested in the details, please visit our website or the Facebook. Nowadays, what is on the top priority list of everyone's mind is about how to sustain business and sustain life, what Xiang Heng referred to as safe living. Like governments all around the world, the Hong Kong SAR government also tries her best to sustain people's livelihood and save lives, providing real up-to-hour information about the pandemic, review and update guidelines for the public. We have quick turnaround, extensive testing, paying for employee salary, etc. All through the pandemic, actually, Hong Kong has not had any lockdowns, but more than 90% of the people wear masks. I noted that one of the questions about this. I think that we can discuss that further. And some businesses are closed for certain reason, and we have regulations for quarantine and social distancing. In support of all this, the Occupational Safety and Health Council created a dedicated webpage to provide prevention resources to employers and employees. We are mindful that one size will not fit all, and we need to be person-centered. So we try to find gaps to fill it. We provide pictorial guidelines that are easy to follow, tailor-made for specific industries. So you could see, most of them are actually small businesses. We know that for some frontline workers, say from the catering industry, retail, or property management, they have lots of public interface, and they won't know how to do when someone, say, fell sick and vomits in their common area. So what we did is that we have the pictorial guidelines to tell them how to clean up, what precautions to take, etc. So our pictorial guidelines actually provide them with straightforward answers. But just the guidelines are not adequate. Unlike big companies that they have their own crisis management teams, that what we have observed from Philip Morris and Siemens, many small businesses don't know what to do. So we created a simple step-by-step prevention preparedness plan for the boss and management teams to follow. We call this 7 moves. Actually, some Chinese saying is like the Kung Fu, that you should have 7 moves to protect your staff. We provide guidelines for them on, say, setting up core response team, on flexible work arrangement, as well as on how to devise a business continuity plan. Again, if you are interested, you're welcome to visit our website for further details. Of course, we won't forget about the frontline workers who have to deal with people day in and day out. Most of them are not familiar with infection control measures, and they do not even know how to wear or take down the PPEs. So we issued a handbook detailing how to dispose like this, how to dispose suspected contaminated stuff. We have a detailed sequence on how to, on what to wear first, what to take down first, as well as how to take off your gloves, how to take off your overall gown and the hat, then the face shield and all that. So again, if you're interested or if you want to make reference, please visit our website. But our group-centered prevention approach did not stop there. Ethnic minority groups in Hong Kong have limited access to prevention information. So we identify some groups, find out which industry they are in, and translate the guidelines. Like this, we find that some of the construction workers, they speak Filipino, Nepali, and Urdu, not English or Chinese. So we translate into their language such that they can follow, the same guidelines and all that. We also have graphics on tips for, say, from, actually we said that we want to have the tips from the minute you woke up to the minute you get back home. So we have hygiene tips when traveling to work. We also have hygiene tips for getting back home, as well as flexible work arrangement, how to wash your hands and everything. Just now, Mr. Gianluca reminded us not to forget that all other occupational risks are still there. And I echo his line. We should remember that occupational accidents still claim lives, and we need to draw people's attention to that. It's getting hot in Hong Kong, so we have started our prevention of heat stroke campaign, and we are also in the typhoon season. So we send all the reminders about the pre and post-storm or thunderstorm warnings. And despite that, we need to maintain physical distance. So despite that, we have to maintain the physical distance. We actually travel around construction site to remind them of safety measures. We also noticed that actually in Hong Kong, people move around less during this time. Some may fear that they may get infected if being out too often. This is bad actually for physical and mental health. So apart from sending health reminders using social media, we have webinar seminars, like something like this one, on mental health, on mindfulness training, on exercising, and of course on prevention. You would notice that actually some of the seminars actually are in future tense. You are most welcome to join, but I'm sorry to say that they are all in Cantonese. We find that online channels have never been so important to us, and we really should make full use of that. One more point about SMEs, they are hard hit by the pandemic. Business are down, and like it or not, actually we note that safety is among the first costs that they would cut. I know some safety managers have been laid off because of this. So what we have done is to provide enhanced subsidy for them. And for some PPEs, actually we are giving out free. And we provide big discounts for training, and for industry hard hit by the pandemic, we provide them with free safety training. Before I close, I would like to share a bit about what we have learned. First, every life counts. Actually, we all know this, but now people are acutely aware of this, and we should seize each opportunity to do people-centered prevention promotion. Second, we should go back to the basic. Remember what we learned in kindergarten, care for each other, help each other out, and we will be fine. And of course, we all recognize that Wi-Fi and internet are really the human basic needs, and we should make full use of them when it comes to prevention promotion. And let's do our bits to share real and useful life-saving information, tailoring for different groups' specific needs. We are all fighting against a monster that keeps evolving. I echo Mr. Hoffman's point about nobody can do it alone. And we know that we are not safe until everybody is safe. So we need to collaborate more and not to compete on this front. For this, I'm thankful to today's organizers for hosting this event and international collaboration indeed. And thanks to all of you who are still here. Stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bonnie, for sharing the impressive range of activities that your council has taken during the campaign. But I'm not surprised. I know your council, you're very active, you're very community oriented. But nevertheless, it was breathtaking, all the initiative you have taken, and the holistic view that you have embarked on, also by thinking about which indirect impact the crisis has, for example, on the capacity of small businesses to maintain their safety levels. So before we come to the final discussion round, it's my great pleasure to give the floor to Gillian Hamilton to share some Australian insights into how to manage the campaign, and in particular how to address the issue of more person-centered prevention approaches.
Good morning and good evening from Australia. I'm just going to share my screen with you, and hopefully we will make it over there. And I wonder, can you see my screen? Fantastic. Yes. Are you seeing also my other slides, or just the
the one?
Perfect. Okay. Good evening and good morning. Look, just discussing about how to support a person-centered and group-centered prevention, and also what is the difference. I'm not sure everybody is aware of the term, so I thought I might just briefly go through this in the beginning. So a group-centered prevention approach is really about legislation, looking to the whole group, looking for media-based strategies that are encompassing absolutely everybody at the same time with the same message, and also about education. And so in this particular time, there is an absolute need for all countries to be focusing on both a group-centered and a person-centered prevention. It's got to be a dual approach, particularly, we're talking in Malaysia, we're talking in Hong Kong, we're talking absolutely in Australia, with Malaysia saying up to 98% of SMEs, in Hong Kong, 80% of SMEs. In Australia, we have 60% SME business units, but 45% of our whole population work in a small to medium enterprise, which means businesses that are not like Lars Siemens business, that have got a system and a process and already an emergency response plan. We're talking about thousands and millions of businesses and billions of people globally who don't have an emergency response plan, who don't have a safety plan, and don't have systems and processes to manage safety. And right now, the group-centered approach by governments to create safe COVID plans, to provide posters, to provide general and generic information that businesses can take, even if they are also measured to different industries, has significant value right now and is essential, because businesses are struggling not only to survive in being open, but then struggling to get across this new thing called safety, the new the thing they have to be across. They've skirted around the corners before, but now it is essential, and everybody is concerned. And also, with so many people vulnerable, we have people that are frightened to even enter the workplace. Vulnerable groups, as discussed by Jose, is huge. The World Health Organization is indicating that anybody over 60, in 2017, 962 million people were over 60 years old, and now we're 3 years ahead of that. So I think also there's an element that we missed on vulnerability, is about the low socioeconomic status of a person that also makes them vulnerable. We're talking about people's ability to themselves. Is there medical supplies? Is there medical approaches? Can you get to the doctor? Are you affluent enough to be able to go to a doctor? In our supply chains globally, there are businesses who use people from all over the world. And some people, when they're unwell, it is not for everybody to go to the hospital. It is sometimes only for the privileged to go to hospital. So at this point in time, I take my hat off to you in Hong Kong and other countries that have opened their doors to everybody, because it's so essential that everybody is cared for with the COVID, because one person who's unwell can absolutely increase contact to another person. What is also essential is that we all understand that this is a disease, or sorry, a pandemic that is not a selective based upon race, based upon age, based upon your money in your pocket. It was actually my delight to see Tom Hanks in Australia get COVID, because it meant immediately that a very famous person was actually receiving COVID, and it meant that it was human to get COVID. And I thought that was very important, because we don't want this to be a poor man's disease. We don't want people to be ostracized if they do get the COVID. So what then is a person-centered prevention? Well, this is a way of seeing and thinking and doing things that sees employers and businesses as equal partners with their workers, when they're planning, when they're developing, when they're monitoring the prevention. Now, this goes back to Lars. It also goes back to Gianluca when he's talking about how they're involving the workforce, and Jose saying that he's working with certain groups. And it is so essential right now that we're putting the workers, the customers, and their families in the center of decisions. For the first time globally, everybody instantly has an instant, immediate, and deep passion for their own personal health and safety, but also particularly of their loved ones. This is unique, it is instant, and is global. And so this is why there's such an immediate attention by everybody. Nobody is immune to this particular pandemic at this time. And I think the underlying philosophy is, of course, that we're doing things with people and rather than to them. We're respecting people's values, their cultures. Now, we talked about Kung Fu in Malaysia. What a great way to enhance and harness and take forth the culture of the way that people learn, what is their passion, to have them actually focus on care for themselves and their families in time of COVID. Look, I think it's important that we also really ensure that we are very clear that there's direct and indirect vulnerable people. There's the people that are coming to your workplace who are your workers that we need to care for, but we must, of course, care for our customers and our clients who won't come to our workplace if we are not seen as clean, if we are not showing a clean, safe workplace to enter, to buy their groceries, to do their shopping, to do whatever they need to do. And also we will have challenges with our head clients and our customers and all of our supply chain from a reputation point of view if our staff are being publicly known to get COVID and they're getting it from your workplace. Reputation, damage to your business, and also potential stock exchange challenges. We have seen that already globally. I'm not going to say the places, but there has been businesses make the front page of the newspaper, and I'm sorry for them, but we don't want to be those businesses. It's also very important for you to understand in your person-centered or even your subgroup-centered is your particular business, and also how risky is your particular work. Now, within a business, you may have a large or different kinds of risk. You might have low risk, where you've got office workers who can work from home, who are those, accountants and the leaders of the business. But you also might have some particular people in the business who are in hospitality. They might be serving at a cafe. You might have people who are frontline salespeople. You might have cleaners. So there's different people and different occupational score risks. This is a fantastic document. The link is there and will be given to you guys to be able to get through to see where people sit on the level of risk. And it's very important that a business understands their risk. And so what part of the culture and what part of the center do you have to focus on for your prevention? When we're talking about people center, it is so key that we are looking at individuals when we're considering about how safe it is for them to return to the workplace. Everybody is unique in this particular circumstance. Mary and Bill may have never told you previously about any health issues. Mary and Bill may not have a health issue, but someone they care for may have. And so we kind of have to almost restart our engagement with our workforce as if we've never met them before. And we need to ask them, what is there, any preconditions that they may have of this gigantic list that I showed you before. I'm going to go back there. This list is absolutely abominable. This list here, this list here shows you where people could be at risk. In Australia, this is up to 50% of our whole entire population. When you're looking back at what someone should be doing, obviously it's very ideal to focus back to the triangle where we're looking at trying to eliminate people initially from the workplace. On a case-by-case basis, this must be assessed. Can we use engineering controls? You'll see the physical barriers that are around the workplace down to all the different kinds. But we put a list together of what was the best ways to work towards managing vulnerable people in the workplace. So we looked originally at supporting the government and industry communications that are around, use them, disseminate them, and make sure there's not misinformation, because in our area, we've got lots of misinformation, and the government information should be a strong source of information. We suggest you conduct an assessment of your workplace. Consider your actual workplace socioeconomic factors like the business, the people. Consider your occupation and its type and where you are at risk. Businesses also need to find out from their workers directly if they are at risk or if they are vulnerable, and either directly or indirectly. And if a worker is at risk, we must be consulting with their medical professional and working originally to a socialization. But if they can't be in the workplace, we really need to talk with their doctors about a way that we can keep them safe whilst they're at work. So we hope that we all work together for some best case solutions, and we know by sharing with each other, we can absolutely see some great solutions globally and worldwide. So back to you, Hans, and thank you from Australia.
Well, thank you very much indeed. I know that Managed Damage has been extremely fast in reacting and offering businesses online training in different aspects of teleworking and others. So you really have contributed now to the list of to-do things. Now, I would like to go to the questions that we have received, and I will start with a question that I would like Jose Manuel and Gianluca to respond to. And this is from Nana Saiber. And she asks, in the COVID-19 time, it was given that we needed to share the medical conditions of employees, and they wanted to do so. But how do we balance this in the future, giving opportunity to personalize prevention, but still prevent discrimination or segregation? I think this is one of the real critical issues for the future. So I'm interested if you have already considered this. Maybe Jose Manuel, you could start.
Well, yes, and have like a proper answer for that question. It will be difficult right now, no? Because I think it's going to be a matter of time. Starting first of all saying that I think that, and this is a global sentence, no? Health protection is above personal protection, or data, personal data protection, no? And we need to take into account that the situation that we are currently, well, it's about all of that, no? So if an employee wants to be protected, it's not other choice to share the information, no? But this is what I said in the presentation about the approach, no? You need to show the employees that this that what you are doing is to protect them, okay? You don't want to put them on a list, no? It's true that all that kind of thing sounds that, or we know because it's in the history. I mean, that's in the past in so many countries. But it is important to understand that, for example, what we do here is we never ask the employee directly what kind of pathology they have, okay? As we have a list of vulnerable groups, we don't, like, it's not different if the person has a health issue or a lungs issue. I mean, the question is, are you part of one of these groups? It's yes or no. And then that once a person says yes, it goes directly to the medical service. Of course, with the medical service, you need to share because they need to check in detail the situation, no? Then when the person is already checked by the medical survey, it goes back to health and safety, but with no information of the pathology. It's a vulnerable person. Of course, if the person comes to you, sometimes we are a little bit like psychologists, no? And start to even ask you questions about the pathology and that kind of thing, but it's something that the person decides to share with you. So this is what we have in place to avoid that kind of that the information doesn't keep in any record. It's just you are vulnerable, doesn't matter what kind of illness do you have. I believe that helps. Of course, it's still there a risk that, okay, you were in a list, no, or something like that. But again, that's the reason of the approach, no, that you need to use with employees, being sure that they understand again that it's for help, not for discrimination.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Gianluca, have you also considered this?
Yes, this needs a very strong legal framework because there are different factors coming into the picture. The first one, as mentioned, is the privacy part. The second one, in most of the countries, at least in Europe, we have this medical surveillance. So to try to understand if the person is fitting for the job. And of course, pre-existing medical condition will surface when we need to decide if the person is fitting for the job. Of course, it's not the same everywhere. So we need to be very careful because disclosing this, let's say, weaknesses can backfire in some place. Could be the opportunity for job termination and this kind of things. I think that the sense of responsibility of the company is first, that once you have people on board that maybe are going to develop these illnesses later on, we need to maintain a certain, let's say, code of conduct. We cannot just dismiss people because they get sick while they are under the employment, so they are already working for the company. In some case, of course, it's also fair to have a clear screening to understand if the job is appropriate for the person. And this should be part of any occupational health guideline or standard in most of the company, because also exposing people to a job that can worsen pre-existing medical condition is not a fair thing to do. So it's something that needs for sure strict regulation, but needs also a responsible approach from the company to take, let's say, ownership on doing a proper medical screening, and also using occupational health and well-being as a system maybe to improve certain medical conditions. So offering, let's say, proper assistance or a work environment where people with certain disease can find the right, let's say, solutions or treatment for their let's say, weaknesses. Like, I don't know, if somebody has hypertension or heart disease, having a canteen where you can find food which is appropriate for their condition. So I think this should be part of the overall care that a company should take. I think that we disconnected with the Hans Horst.
Yeah, I think Hans.
Yes.
Is it okay now? Okay.
Yes, and now you're back.
Perfect. Thank you for now. But just to say that, as your answers show, it's a complex issue. And it was a very good question, and we don't have yet a clear answer because there are different legislative frameworks as regards data protection. But I think it's a good question to work with, because we definitely need to work more into the direction of person-centered, group-centered prevention, to have a more holistic view. And this is very clear. This pandemic has shown that, and we have kind of embarked on certain solutions. And I think it's very interesting, I think, in the future to have this sharing of information. How can we best do that, balancing the different interests here, and questioning whether also the safety and health professional, when kind of involving him herself in this kind of discussion with the worker, also should have a protection in terms of privacy here, not keeping these under confidentiality. So, because it's the interest of the individual that are in a way the same as the one of the company, that everybody is safe and healthy, that have to be balanced. So So excellent question, and I don't think this could be a good topic. I think for another webinar because it's definitely something we need to address. I have another question from Stephen Singh Shengtang, and he says, "Do all of you," and I would like Bonnie and Gillian to reflect on this. Do all of you think that everybody wearing medical face masks, PPE, in a society is the most effective health and safety measure to prevent cross-infection amongst people in the society nowadays before the invention of effective vaccine? I think, Bonnie, I will let you start, but Asia and your region is famous for its face masks. No, we were also impressed when coming from Europe and landing in airports that everybody's wearing a face mask. No, and this has been a strong recommendation we heard from the region. So what will your short answer to this question be?
Yeah, you can see that actually today I'm wearing the face mask that is provided by the Hong Kong government, not a medical level, but it's still good enough for community use. But I would say both yes and no. Yes, is that because Hong Kong and for some community is so crowded that it's difficult to keep social distancing. That's why you need to have some barriers, and the face mask is very good barriers for you to, especially when you are with someone who is asymptomatic. If he or she is symptomatic, I think being a responsible person, he or she should not come close to others and should go to the hospital being taken care of. But for others, it would be difficult. But why is it that I say yes and no? Because it is just part and parcel of the whole bigger solution to this. I must betray my father-in-law who wear a mask all the time, but he's very clumsy with his hands. You know, touch his face all the time, don't wash it frequently. And if so, actually the mask is not the answer. So I must say that it's part and parcel, especially for the crowded place like Hong Kong, but we need other things. We need contact tracing. We need people to be isolated, taken care of. We need the whole host of things. Then the face mask, if we use properly, it would help. It would definitely help. Okay.
Thank you. Gillian, well, how is the view in Australia? You have been blessed by a very low number of infections compared to other, especially Western countries. So is everybody wearing a mask, or how is it at Bondi Beach, or how is it going along?
Thank you, Hans. Initially, we were almost ordered not to buy masks or use masks because of the global shortage. Our government was very concerned about people stockpiling masks, and as they were not available to our health system, to our nurses, to our doctors. We have now seen a return in supplies. The information has been clear from our government that we should be focusing on the other forms of prevention first. We should always be keeping our distance. We should always, if we are a high risk person, however, or a vulnerable person, then a vulnerable person may consider that it is more safe for them to wear a mask, because if somebody does cough, if someone does sneeze, and even just the impact of breathing and speaking, droplets can go past this 1.5 meters. And also in some of the shops where you go, they do not have the barriers. And so if a customer or a staff member was to speak with you and they may have some kind of potential contact, then it would be more beneficial if you were a vulnerable person to be more precautious and actually wear a mask. But again, focusing on the other prevention measures first, and as the triangle that I showed, PPE is always a last option in every form of prevention. But if you are high risk, or if you are in high contact, as in you have to be closer than 1.5 to do your work, then you must be using a mask to protect yourself and the person you are working with.
Well, thank you very much for these responses. I think they have shown that also here it's not just a simple yes or no. This is kind of familiar when we talk about prevention. It's complex, and there is always a line of action So it's not just about PPEs, it's actually trying to prevent at the source and so on and so forth. But I really would like to thank you for sharing your valuable experiences. I took especially note of what Jillian said as about that we kind of should use this opportunity to restart our relation with the employees. A restart that should be more mindful now, where we are more caring, where we take more holistic views on the person we're talking to, not just as a worker that has some work-related risks, working with dangerous machines or working at height, but more globally, a person that also has some preconditions, a person that has a social setting, a person that deserves more attention than just the person's ability to conduct work over 8 hours. And I think this is a true challenge for us in prevention, but also, as it was highlighted, with all the initiatives that have been taken, both at company level, but also at societal level or more generally, that this is an opportunity for prevention to become more relevant for the person. That also was echoed during the first part of the session when we talked about the culture and building a culture. That caring is the basis for building any relation. If you don't care about another person, this person will not build trust. This person will not understand why he or she should actually follow certain guidelines or rules. If this person understands that it's about an interest, a genuine interest in that person's health, safety, and well-being, and that this is something that is a value at the workplace, I think we can move mountains, not just preventing COVID infections. And I think all of the companies we have on board have been very successful in that, but also to actually have a better situation. And what I found interesting, the end here, is to also hear that when we focus on preventing COVID through the different measures we have heard, we also have better results. We have better results in health outcomes for the individual. We have less risks and incidents, and we have a better outcome even for the company, because one thing we have also heard earlier was that productivity levels have been increasing. So people actually, maybe because of the fear, because we don't know the uncertainty for the company, will it survive the post-COVID economic and financial issues, but in general, maybe also because they feel better, because they feel more balanced, because they have more choice and they have more responsibility, because also the lines of management have been cut in a way when you're working from home. So you have more self-responsibility, you communicate in different ways. So it's an interesting experience that we should use in prevention, and we intend to do so, because after this first part of our COVID-19 towards a new and safer normal, we will in 2 weeks' time have a similar session addressing two additional critical issues. One has to do with addressing all health risks. This has already been mentioned, the importance that we go beyond the classical safety and occupational disease, so accident disease kind of mantra, the go further and have an interest in well-being and mental issues as well, because this crisis, as we already have heard several occasions today, has an impact on our well-being. And when we return to work after maybe weeks of confinement and lockdown and very scary messages and maybe also scary personal experiences, that you are not the same person as you were before, and that we have to take care of that, and we have to care about our mental well-being a lot, and be open and have in our, it's not just about kind of sitting back on the machine or on your workplace, but it's also about being in that environment and feeling safe and secure. And I think we have heard excellent examples how this can be done, and how important communication is in this respect, and that we should use all forms of communication. So this will be one topic, and the last topic will be about behavior, because at the end of the day, it all boils down to our individual and collective behavior. So we will discuss how we can, maybe even through smart ways, we can influence and strengthen people's safe, healthy behavior at work, and in this way also learn from this crisis, this health crisis, and try to take prevention to the next level, as we would like to with this new and safer normal. But with this, I really would like to thank you. You have been an excellent panel. Thank you for joining us, taking your time. sharing experiences. We are really happy to be in the Asia Pacific region. Before we had webinars which were more addressed to Europe and the Americas. So we're very pleased to be there, and we'll be back. So hope to see many of you. Thank you to all the viewers for the chats and for the good questions we have received. And with this, I would like to close this seminar and give a virtual applause to everybody. Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
And stay safe. Bye.